Jakie były ogólne wyniki działalności Żegoty?
What were the general results of the Zegota activities? Well, it is difficult to give an exact answer because it was an underground activity, and not all the documents, not all of the people survived. So not all aspects of the activity can be determined. Generally, it is agreed that about 4,000 people were directly helped by Zegota. Regarding the documents, not everybody needed money, and not all the people were getting it. And some could not get it because there was not enough for everybody. More people received assistance in obtaining forged Polish documents than received monetary help. Zegota itself manufactured about 50,000 documents and distributed even more because it also distributed documents prepared by other underground organizations. But again, there are no receipts. It could be twice as much or less. Anyway, it was many dozens of thousands of documents. In terms of numbers of children, we can speak only of Warsaw, because here we have more reliable figures. Zegota here looked after 2,500 children who were in safekeeping with their guardians.
In Krakow, we asked Mr. Jerzy Turowicz, chief editor of Poland's leading Catholic newspaper, how he would speak to people about Zegota.
Well, I think that one should explain to them ties between Poles and Jews in history, the fact that during centuries we have been living together. They have been people of different faith, maybe, different behavior, but they have been our brothers, our neighbors. And when under Nazi occupation, they have been so terribly persecuted, condemned to death. Also, every man, conscious Christian or even non-Christian, should be obliged to do everything possible to help them. And exactly Zegota was the expression of this feeling.
Not only was it worth the effort, but I have a strong feeling that not enough was done. Today, when somebody makes me out to be a hero, it is very annoying to me, because it was not heroism. It was just a civil duty, to extend a helping hand towards another person. Too little was done. Much more could have been done. But in order to do it, goodwill was needed on both sides. First of all, many Poles wanted to help. They wanted but were afraid to. There is no antidote for fear. In spite of the Jewish antipathy toward Poles, many Poles still wanted to help but were afraid to. I must remind you that Poland was the only country in Europe where even the smallest help was punishable by death. Of course, there were some who did not want to help. On the other hand, when we were going to the ghetto to pick up those children, there were terrible scenes happening. One mother wanted a child to leave while her father did not. The grandmother wanted, the mother did not. They were asking what was the guarantee. What kind of a guarantee could I give them? I could not even give them a guarantee that I would get past the sentry. I was escorting the children and infants past the sentry in a very secretive way. Great appreciation should be given to the building caretakers who were located between the ghetto and the Aryan side. Thanks to their courage, I was able to go through. But I always could have come across an anti-Semitic caretaker who could have killed me and the Jewish child too. I could not give a Jewish family any guarantee a child would live. In those cases, very often, I was not given a child, and I was left frustrated and often crying. The next day, when I went back to the building to try again to convince them, it was too late. All of the residents were already at the Umschlagplatz.
In front of Poland's oldest remaining synagogue in Krakow, we spoke with Reverend Stanisław Musiał.
You know, we are proud about the people, our people, Polish people, who behaved so heroically. You must remember, to help the Jews during the war, it was a death sentence. So, you know, there were exceptions who helped at the price of their life. But it's very important they were. And we are proud of them because they are in some way part of us, even if we did not so much for the Jews. But it's a bright light for us.
The unfortunate part of this work was the fact that the actual help we provided was only a small drop in an ocean of need. That although hundreds of thousands needed help, realistically only 1 or 2% received it. Furthermore, quite often a Jew or even an entirely Polonized man of Jewish descent, after 3, 8, 10 months or a year of Zegota help, was finally caught on a street by the Gestapo agents and killed. And all that effort was in vain. I myself experienced such things and considered them everyday occurrences. We also encountered people's indifference and unfriendliness. They asked, why do it? And if someone would ask me today, after all these years, how it was possible, I would say that a certain percentage of people in that society, in spite of the terrible conditions we all lived under, were able to risk their own and their families' lives, just to be equal to the task of living up to their own ethical and human requirements. A certain percentage of the people collaborated with the Kripo. There were informers, blackmailers, and the scum of society. But the great majority were simply afraid. They did neither good nor bad. It could be said that not doing anything good in response to extreme need is already an act of evil. Believing Christians know that we confess to the sin of omission. That means that if you have renounced something, not helping the sick, the dying, or the imperiled, although you did nothing wrong, you are guilty. Viewed in a very subtle yet deeply ethical perspective, the whole of Europe committed the sin of omission. To a higher degree, those who could have done more, and to a smaller degree, those with lesser capabilities. The enormous sin of omission was committed by the governments of the United States and Great Britain, a fact which is today well documented by American, English, Jewish, German, and French scholars. The larger sin of omission was committed by the ones with the greatest resources, the smaller sin by the ones who could do less, but did nothing at all.
Perhaps in light of its new political freedom, Poland will soon give further recognition to the Zegota experience. But here in Israel, symbolic and actual place of refuge for most of the Jewish survivors of the Holocaust, recognition and honor have been given to Zegota as a movement and to its individual participants. On the top of a hill in western Jerusalem is a sacred place of memoriam to 6 million Jewish victims of the Nazi genocide, and as well a place to honor those non-Jews who, for their own reasons, risked their lives to save Jewish lives. People come here to Yad Vashem to share in a profoundly moving experience of personal reflection on the Holocaust. Unique in this growing forest of tribute to individual heroes is one tree which recalls the collective efforts of Zegota. The director of the Yad Vashem program for the Righteous Among Nations, Mr. Mordecai Paldiel.
Everywhere we walk in this place, we see trees, special trees, some carob trees, some olive trees, pine trees, and next to each tree there's a name, an individual. And these are persons who, in spite of all the risks incurred to themselves, and the risks were death by the Nazis and their accomplices, in spite of these, they, for some strange, mysterious reasons, decided that they were going to do their utmost to make it possible for a Jewish person to survive the Nazis, survive that terrible period. And we place these trees here everywhere at Yad Vashem in order to validate and vindicate the biblical statement that man was created in the divine image, a statement which seems to be very seriously questioned by the behavior of the Nazis. In 1953, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, legislated the existence of this memorial. And the legislator very wisely and with much insight added a provision in that law stating that one of the principal tasks of Yad Vashem was to recognize and honor non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews from the Nazis.
Director of Yad Vashem's Research Center and former member of the Jewish Fighting Organization of the Warsaw Ghetto, Professor Yisrael Gutman.
The important point in the existence and the establishment of Zegota is the fact that it is a rare phenomenon in occupied Europe that such organized form of activity was created. In Poland, the effort to rescue Jews, to save Jews, was much more dangerous, much more difficult than in other occupied countries. And despite the fact there were many people, relatively many people, who do this special work in the difficult and the barbaric conditions of occupied Poland. And even if the results are very modest, it is, in my opinion, an expression of great human spirit. And it is a kind of glory for the Polish people, even if it is only an achievement of a very small minority.